you were saying you're becoming a peach person.
Yeah, peach cobbler, peach pie, all that stuff. I don't eat that stuff very much, but when I do, it is very, very good. I used to hate it.
Oh man,
used to be like
until you heard that Presidents of the United States of America song. Right?
Well, that's when it all started.
That was the turning point.
That was you know. I actually like that song. It's a kind of a guilty pleasure.
I'll tell you what, I love the second record by them. I mean, love it. It's amazing.
Is that the
I think
one
it's just called 2.
Yeah, 2. Now, see, I haven't heard that one, but I really like the first one.
It's really good. I mean, if you're into like really kind of goofy, lame bullshit, it's amazing.
Yeah, and that's what they are. I mean, the name of their band is the Presidents of the United States of America.
Yeah, it's a pretty long name.
It's so great. It's honestly like I rank it as one of the best band names ever, and I'm being serious. Like to think of that,
it's pretty good.
Just to think of that, like it's one of those things that if it were my accomplishment, I would be so proud of it. I know I'm really holding that in high regard, but what an absurd idea, and delightfully absurd.
No, this is my mini review. Also, listen to Presidents of the United States of America too. If you like Cheap Trick and you like Weezer and I don't know, the Rentals and whatever, there's some fun rock music stuff. I don't know. It's super fun. Anyway.
Well, and also I think it has to be mentioned before we drop this part of the conversation. It has to be mentioned that the fact that they played with like 2 strings, 3 strings or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like the guitar had 3 and the bass had 2 or some crazy.
Well, I think
nonsense.
I think they both had. I think one of them had. I think the singer had 1 guitar string and 1 bass string.
Okay.
And I think the other I guess we'll call him the guitarist. I don't know. I guess that he had he either had 1 guitar string and 2 bass strings or 2 guitar strings and 1 bass string. I don't remember which one. So, but in any case, that's insane.
Yeah, they did a lot with them. I don't know exactly why.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think they could have had all their strings and pretty much done the same thing, but I don't know. I mean, maybe they just hate strings and they're like, I fucking hate strings, but I know I got to use them, so I'm just going to use 1 because that's all I can deal with, because strings are the worst thing on the planet.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was.
They are, yeah. I mean,
I hate strings.
I do too. Everything about them.
I tight strings, drawstrings, guitar strings,
hang strings,
apron strings,
strings.
All the strings suck.
What about string
theory? I hate it.
What about bean strings?
I hate string beans and bean strings.
And bean strings. Well, I mean,
I do like the Beat Strings from Cedar Falls, though. They're a good band.
Yeah, the Beat Strings are great.
Yeah, that's the only strings I like.
Every time I hear that band name, the Beat Strings, it always makes me think of the Beats from the Doug Show on Nickelodeon.
Oh man, I love the Beats. Yeah.
Killer Tofu.
Yeah, Tofu. Was not expecting to sing Killer Tofu on the podcast today.
You're on a podcast with me, so get used to it.
Banging on a Streetlight. Remember that?
Oh yeah, that's banging on a street light, strumming on a
trash can.
Oh wait, is it beating on a? Strumming on a? Oh, strumming on my banjo. I think it was. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard it in a few years.
Yeah, dude.
I remember it being a really great song, though.
Oh, dude.
I also remember being way too old to watch Doug, but I did it. I don't even care. Well, I'll talk to people and they'll be like, remember Salute Your Shorts? And I'll be like, yeah. And then they'll be like, God. Wait, you're 15 years old.
Yeah, that was
I didn't care.
that
watched
that was
all of
my junior high adolescence in a nutshell. All those shows like Salute Your Shorts, Pete and Pete, Doug. What is the perfect age for Doug, though, really, when you think about it?
I don't know. For me, it was like 17.
Did you ever see? Did you ever, dude? Same here. Same.
And
man. Actually,
Alex Mack. I was with
Alex Mack.
too. Are you afraid?
Are
of
you
the
afraid
dark?
of the dark?
Was sick.
Snick, man, Snick Saturday nights.
Yeah.
That was a party at my house.
I still watched Kablam on Friday nights when I was in college.
Yeah. Well, dude, like, come on, man. Those shows just they transcend generations. Pete and Pete. How can you not?
That's true.
How can you not still think Pete and Pete was one of the most genius and absurd things to ever hit the airwaves? Oh my gosh.
Wow. Yeah.
Come
I'm going to
on,
have to
man.
watch all those again. Yeah.
The thing is, it's almost like history's trying to erase it. I can't find it anywhere. Like even the DVDs, it's like they stopped making them or something because they're like selling they're selling on Amazon for like, last I checked, used for like $80 or something.
Jeez. Wow.
So I don't know. Like it seems like they realized how unproud they were of that show or something, which I don't get.
Yeah, I don't either.
Again,
Wow.
if I was the person who gave the green light to Pete and Pete, I would consider myself a genius. Like you wouldn't be able to debate me because I would just win in my mind anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, I didn't green light Pete and Pete, so I'm not a genius. I'm
So
actually stupid.
this is all hypothetical. I get it.
Exactly. So, I mean, you're stuck with stupid Dan, but you know, until I get the chance to like green light a show that's as intellectually stable as Pete and Pete, that's when you can call me genius, Dan. So I don't know. The world might be waiting for a while.
As soon as I do some genius shit, I'm going to be a genius.
Exactly. That's Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon in the 90s was a whole different ball game, man.
I've actually watched 2 documentaries recently about it.
Oh yeah. What did they say?
Well, one was like actually I've watched 3 documentaries. Oh my God. I need to get a life. So one of them was seriously, it was called like the Orange Years or something like that. And it was really well done, but it was also, I think, made kind of by Nickelodeon or something. So it didn't really get too serious or whatever. But Mark Summers was on it, and, you know, pretty much everyone from the shows did their little talking head interviews.
Yeah.
And then I watched one about John Kay. Ren and Stimpy and John Kay. And then I watched another one about that guy. He was in a few things. Head of the Class was a TV show he was on. He was also in the movie Better Off Dead. But he made like all that and a bunch of other shows and turned out to be a creep. And so I watched.
Are you talking
documentary
about
that?
His name is Dan something.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to.
Dan Orr. I think.
Dude. Yes. So people, if you know anybody by the name of Dan Orr, please.
He was a genius and
Well, no, he's stupid. He didn't greenlight any Nickelodeon shows.
Well, all that and Keenan and Kel and
that Dan Orr. The genius Dan Orr, the genius creep. But no, but seriously though, his actual name was Dan also. It wasn't
right. It is.
Like, I can't remember his last name. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like
Dan Creepy Genius, I think.
Creepy Genius. Well, I don't know. All the shows that he pioneered like in the 2000s, I wouldn't call them genius.
No, they weren't. He's just a creep. Dan, but he's creepy.
Dan Creepy. We'll call him that. But no, this dude, whoever he is, he was like accused of all kinds of like sexual assaults or something with like some of the minors that were on the show, including some big stars we know.
Yeah.
Like we now know. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's nuts. But John Kay was also not a creep. Yes, he was also a creep. And he got accused of, that's essentially why he got fired from Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah. And also, Brian Peck worked on that show, All That, and he also is a creep. He was in my favorite horror movie, Return of the Living Dead.
I know now, Dan Schneider. That's who he is.
That's it.
Dan Schneider, Brian Peck, and John Kay.
So I would say just stay the hell away from
Nickelodeon.
Grown-ups. If you're a kid, don't talk to grown-ups.
Yeah.
And if you're an adult, don't talk to other adults.
Yeah. Well,
just stay away from everyone because they're all creeps, and that's just the truth.
Yes, yeah. All
except me. I mean, you can talk to me. Except all the creeps are going to tell you that too. So I don't know. It's very difficult.
Yes.
Just be safe and stay away from other adults.
People.
And also, as an adult, don't talk to kids because that's creepy too. So
yeah,
here's the deal: just no one talk to anyone.
Yeah,
that's it.
We had it right this last year. Just stay quarantined and go nowhere.
Yeah.
Don't do anything. Don't interact with anyone ever again, and just do podcasts for the rest of your life.
Like see, we're not hurting anyone. Yeah. I mean, there might be a young person or another adult listening to my voice right now, but I mean, it's okay because I'm not really there.
Whoa, I never thought of it like that, dude.
That I'm not really in with people when they listen to me.
Yeah, or well, like right now, I'm talking to Eric Whitaker, but I'm not really talking to Eric Whitaker.
Right.
Whoa, man, that is far out, dude.
Well, that's why it's okay. Because otherwise I would be like, Dan, you really should not talk. He is most definitely a creep.
As soon as you see me, shut your mouth, dude. Like, I really don't think you should.
Yeah, you should not hear the things I say. You should just not be around me. I mean, it's a bad deal.
I have an idea. Well, actually, two ideas. The first idea is, okay, no, I have one idea. Let's why don't you talk about records with people instead of, you know what I mean? Like music, talk music with people. We could do that. Yeah, and that'll make you safe.
Hey, that is a good idea.
It kind of seems like I had another idea though. And I don't know. I think
talking about some records is a pretty good idea.
So let's start with that idea. And then I'll tell you what, if I think of my other idea, maybe we'll,
all right,
I'll interrupt.
Sweet.
Like I always seem to do.
Okay. So speaking of creeps, I'm sort of kidding, but I'll get to that. I have heard a little bit of feedback from people. And one thing that they've said to me is that they never really hear me or us say that they didn't like something or have negative things to say about it.
Right.
And so I'm about to change that a little bit. Okay. So my first choice is Ghostemane. The album is called Noise, and it came out in 2018. And I listened to a lot of like horror rap, experimental, dark, kind of hybrids of rap and industrial and all kinds of stuff like that. So for me to happen upon Ghostemane makes absolute perfect sense. And when I first listened through a couple songs, I was like, oh, hell yeah, this will be awesome. And with that being said, I did love the production a lot. I love the music. There are elements of industrial, metal, hardcore, but also like, I don't even know how to say it, like Southern rap or even like almost dubby, mindless self-indulgence kind of delivery of some rap stuff, things like that. But yeah, I love the music of the Ghostemane record. Some of the time it sounds a lot like Nine Inch Nails, like exactly like Nine Inch Nails, which is fine. I like Nine Inch Nails. But yeah, if I had to really narrow it down to what this sounds like, I would say if you like Marilyn Manson and mindless self-indulgence and Nine Inch Nails, other industrial stuff, other hardcore stuff too that maybe I don't know about, you're gonna like at least the music and maybe the lyrics. And so here's where I stand with this though. I know I make jokes all the time about how violence is super cool and terrorism's neat and worshiping the devil's hilarious and things like that. You know, I'm just being edgy. Okay. even if I did believe any of the crap that I say, I don't actually think it should have any bearing on like the real world or who I am as a person or whatever. And unfortunately with this Ghostemane, I just don't think it was made for me, at least lyrically. And the way it's delivered is fine. Like I said, I like the music and I like everything about this record, but it just has this really misanthropic, violent, incel kind of, I don't want to say misogyny, but it's like almost inherent because the person making this music, and I know it's an act and everything. I know that they're trying to get people riled up, but it just seems like they've been hurt and they really want to hurt other people. And they really have no other course for resolving their internal struggles and pain and the things that they've been through, except to lash out against everyone around them, themselves, society in general. And it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I know this is a character and I know that this is music, and I'm obviously not about any sort of censorship or people not expressing themselves the way they want to. Yeah, I don't know. Like, for some reason, when I was younger, like songs like Lunchbox didn't bother me, but songs about like having weapons under your trench coat now coming out in 2018, it kind of bothers me. I just don't think I think we've evolved a little bit, or we should have evolved a little bit past just society has hurt me, I'm going to hurt society. And, just this kind of, yeah, like I said, misanthropic, violent feeling to the whole thing. So with that being said, I really enjoyed the music. I just couldn't get behind what some of the songs were about. So anyway, that's my take. And what do you think, Dan?
It's interesting that all the stuff that you just said was basically a much more well thought out version of what I actually wrote down in response to this record. I'm going to say that you went into way more detail and you pretty much said everything without me having to say it in terms of the violence on this record. I kind of feel like it reminds me of like a Burzum record in that sense. Not that it sounds black metal, but he almost, maybe not as bad and probably not as bad of a human being as Burzum, but that's kind of the feeling I get from like Burzum, you know what I mean? Or from like Varg Vikernes, the sort of persona and the character, as you were kind of mentioning, kind of reminded me of that. And it was actually that song about carrying weapons under your trench coat. That definitely rubbed me the wrong way too. In fact, I had to kind of pause it and go back and just sort of be like, what? Like, this actually happened in real life. Really, dude? Like, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. But yeah, this record sounded like an industrial rap record, which, I mean, in all honesty, that's kind of a big thing right now. There's a huge, slightly underground, but just enough to really kind of put them in the public eye. There's kind of a whole like underground of this sort of thing happening that Ghostemane actually kind of seems to be somewhat of a huge figure in maybe pioneering. And so his rapping reminded me of like you mentioned, Southern rap, like almost horrorcore, like his cadence when he raps reminds me a little bit of 3-6 Mafia,
exactly,
and maybe even ICP a little bit, stuff like that. But when he sings, and the 9 Inch Nails thing is so right on the money because, and I wrote this down, reminded me so much of Trent Reznor. It's not even funny.
Right.
I was almost convinced that this was just 9 Inch Nails disguising themselves and making a rap album.
Or doing a guest vocal or something.
Or doing a guest vocal. I mean, that's how close he gets to sounding like Trent Reznor at times. I think also this record borders a little on the cheesy side lyrically, you know. And I mean, I think that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be like this horror movie rap record sort of thing. But his voice, it was a little too close to something like Psychopathic Records, and I never really cared for that kind of rap. But it's interesting too when you talk about the music. I also love the music, and my favorite track was an instrumental track, Android's Dream of Electric Sheep.
Oh yeah, that track was sweet. Yeah, for sure.
It was amazing. It sounded like a horror movie score. I mean, and it didn't sound like it was, it sounded almost like something I'd really never heard before in what it was doing. So there were also just very great elements of almost like innovation on this record too, that I really embraced. So basically it's like, if you like horrorcore, industrial, and almost like, I don't know, black metal type characters, this is for you. And actually, I don't know if you knew this or not, I believe Ghostemane actually did a black metal album.
Oh, really?
I believe so. And so the black metal reference, and I discovered this after listening to this record. I think it's Ghostemane, but it's either him or one of the other kind of popular, like modern horrorcore type records, you know, because essentially that's what this is. I feel like this record is pretty much an updated version of horrorcore, you know.
I do too. And he does have a new record out, and so I don't know, you know, if things have changed or if everything's kind of the same vein as this one, you know. And so, I mean, I don't want to tell people not to listen to something, but I just want people to know that if they do listen to this, put on your Marilyn Manson Jinkos first and like pull, you know, it's like,
I mean, understand that it's not, I mean, it's basically, we kind of said the same thing about mindless self-indulgence. You know what I mean? Like,
we did.
It's just not going to be, it's not necessarily politically correct. You know, it's not necessarily. And I think part of it is a guy, like you said, just trying to be offensive for the sake of being offensive.
And honestly, if that's your deal, have fun. Like, it just doesn't work for me. It's just not my thing. So whatever, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I agree. Overall, I thought it was a pretty cool record. It's probably not going to receive multiple plays from me.
Yeah.
But it was definitely interesting to, you know, listen to it though, for sure. Okay. So this first one I'm going to talk about, I'm going to move away from the hip hop for a little bit. And I'm going to talk about Dale Crover's second solo album, Rat-a-Tat-Tat, that just came out at the beginning of this year. Dale Crover, the drummer of the Melvins. And this record, I think, is just fantastic. It's a catchy pop record in a lot of ways that also embraces elements of noise and avant-garde music at times. But at its core, what I think this sounds like is just a really well sort of updated version of a good classic hard rock record, basically. But I also think it has some, you know, just weird elements thrown in, which if you know the Melvins, that's no surprise. Dale, I think, has a really surprisingly really great singing voice. And there's a couple of like sort of interludes. Like the first track is an instrumental intro that sounds almost as deconstructed and crazy as something like Throbbing Gristle. But then before you know it, they go into the second song, which is called I Can't Help You There. And it sounds like the Rolling Stones or something like that. There's also elements of like Hendrix and Zeppelin throughout this record. Maybe also even like some T-Rex and Stooges. I would say like if you combined all of those elements with like Devo, Kraftwerk, a little bit of Resonance, Throbbing Gristle, you might get closer to describing this album. And also, I mean, let's face it, I hear a lot of the Melvins in this as well. Some of it even reminds me of Nirvana, but overall, it's a really interesting listen and fun listen from beginning to end. There's some acoustic elements that I kind of didn't really care for overall in the production, like one song in particular, and I can't even remember what song it was. That song I wasn't a huge fan of, but yeah, I just think it's a really interesting record and was kind of unexpected, honestly, from the drummer of the Melvins for me anyway. So what did you think, Eric?
Overall, I liked it. It is really experimental at times. I think the first track and the majority of the last track are, I think they even share some music, but that's all pretty experimental stuff. There's a heavy percussion element throughout the whole thing, which you would expect because, you know, a drummer focuses on that thing more than others might. Overall, I liked it. I agree that I didn't necessarily care for the acoustic stuff, but I really liked it when it just calmed down a little bit and there were just songs.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was pretty interesting what kind of songs came out of it. For me, it felt kind of like if the Melvins or Queens of the Stone Age or something like that just completely decided to give in to their Allman Brothers, Molly Hatchet sort of leanings. Like they just decided, okay, let's give up the pretense of we're a heavy metal band and just play this classic rock music that we love, you know, like ZZ Top and everything. Like, I know that all these guys love that music. You know, I think
absolutely.
I would guess on the tour bus, they're not listening to, you know, a lot of Throbbing Gristle, maybe some, but I would guess a lot of it is, you know, going to be Kiss and Molly Hatchet and things like that for real. And so I think for me, that was the sense that I got from it was like, wow, this is actually like classic Southern rock with a little bit of a heavier edge to it.
Yeah.
And it was super fun to hear that because I don't think the Melvins, what I've listened to, and I'll freely admit that I've listened to a third of the Melvin stuff.
Right.
But it never fully goes into just that sort of classic rock. And so that's what I took from this. And I did enjoy that aspect of it the most. So and I know that Dale Crover has another record out, an earlier one, which I haven't heard. So I don't know if how that one compares to this. But I might go back and listen to it because I'd like to see if it's maybe more song based or maybe it's more experimental. I have no idea, but I think it's worth listening.
Definitely. The earlier record, Fickle Finger of Fate, it is more experimental.
Oh, okay.
It has more tracks on it, but it has a lot of shorter tracks. Mm-hmm. But I would say that it's not as song oriented as this one.
Okay.
But it does have some of the catchy classic rock elements that this one does.
So following the evolution of Dale Crover, as I understand it, I'll probably like the next record a lot.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
He's Dale Crover's, in my opinion, the Melvins wouldn't even be the same without Dale Crover. It's like on drums, like he makes that band. And I mean, so does Buzz. Don't get me wrong. Buzz writes all the material, but Dale Crover's drumming is just unmatched as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. He's like such a crazy drummer, just the way that he's perfect for what the Melvins do. And so for him to, you always expect solo projects of band members from certain bands to kind of sound at least something like their original bands. And for him to go off and write these insanely catchy songs that, you know, really, I mean, the Melvins in their relationship with melody is few and far between. I'm not saying it doesn't exist with the Melvins, but it certainly is not.
It's not the point.
It's not the point. Or even like the, I mean, I don't think King Buzzo and Dale Crover could even write like that together. I just think there's something else that goes on when those two get together, you know? And so for him to write these really catchy songs that honestly, a couple of these songs border on, I could hear them on the radio, you know, like I could actually hear this between like, I don't know, Blind Melon's No Rain and Alice in Chains Rooster, you know, like a couple of songs, you know what I mean? Like it's really, really cool stuff. It's great to see him, you know, expand out of what his normal band usually does.
For sure. So my next one is, it's called Perfume Genius. The album is called Set My Heart on Fire Immediately. Came out in 2020. It seems to be really popular, which is funny. I think that one of the things I like about doing this podcast is I just find stuff and I don't really know anything about it. And if I like it or I think I'll like it, then I'll review it. But apparently Perfume Genius has like 1 million listeners a month on Spotify. So compared to some of the other projects we've done that have maybe like 25 listeners, this is pretty popular. But
yeah, I would say so.
I would say that it deserves to be popular. This record is easily, without a doubt, one of the best things I've heard in an extremely long time. I haven't actually fallen for an album this hard probably since we did the Igor record, which blew me away. Like I was in love with it. And I feel the same way about this one. Like, honestly, if I had heard this in 2020 when it came out, it would have been on my top 3 list without a doubt. Maybe even the number 1 from 2020. I loved every second of it. Anyway, it's a very theatrical record. It's very fragile, but also very empowering and very heartfelt. And I'm super glad that this was the other record that I picked this week, like to even out the Ghostemane record. They couldn't be more different as far as how the worldview of the people presenting this music. Perfume Genius, there are, there's sad moments, there's things that are painful, but overall it's more like someone finding themselves and being really empowered and, I don't know, just enlightened about how much they can actually like themselves. I know that sounds long-winded and crazy, but that was the sense I got from it. And I just loved it. It had so many different elements. Like the connective tissue through the whole thing is sort of this empowerment and theatrical element, because the songs are really different. They go everywhere. Sometimes it sounds like Anthony and the Johnsons. Sometimes it sounds like Caleb Landry Jones. Sometimes it sounds like Twin Shadow or Washed Out and stuff like that. Sometimes it sounds like Rufus Wainwright, Belle and Sebastian, tons of stuff. The thing that actually reminded me the most of, this is a debate for another time, but there's a record called Extraordinary Machine by Fiona Apple, which is phenomenal. But I fell in love with the leaked version of it that was produced by a guy called John Bryan. And I liked that original leaked version a lot more than the one that actually came out. There are strong opinions about that on both sides. But it reminded me a lot of that. It was all at moments, it's like there's like a Disney orchestral element to things, but also sometimes it just sounds like Depeche Mode or Wham. It just goes everywhere. Like I said, it's heartbreakingly sad at moments, but overall I found it uplifting, just super easy to love, just so easy to be like, wow, this is so amazing. But anyway, I just loved it. I can't really say enough about it. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I thought it was great. It definitely has moments of melancholy, like the first song, Whole Life, which I think is just a beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous opener. Is just, you can almost hear the pain in his voice. Like it almost sounds like he's getting ready to cry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, but then like the music also kind of actually reminded me, it had a lot of like reverb. It kind of reminded me musically of something like Roy Orbison or something like that.
It was twangy. I forgot to mention that. I listened to so much twang that I actually don't notice it.
Yeah, it has like this twangy, like, again, reminds me of Twin Peaks sort of thing. Then it goes into sounding like something like Mountain Goats for a little bit or something like that. I mean, definitely not John Darnell's voice. I mean, he's definitely got like, he doesn't have a high pitched voice like John Darnell, or, it's a very just lush sounding kind of voice for,
Mhm.
I know that's kind of a lame way to describe it, but like Ben Folds 5. I heard a lot of like Ben Folds 5 type stuff, like piano-y type stuff.
Yeah.
Also another one, Love Spit Love.
I can see that. Yeah.
And then there was one song in particular where he was using some sort of, it sounded like almost like an 80s, 90s sort of production that the song reminded me of like Fine Young Cannibals or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
On the
like,
floor, maybe.
On the floor. That's it. Yeah. Cause
For
that's
sure.
It
is poppy as shit.
Poppy, but it sounded like it would have been, it sounded like it was a song out of time in the best ways, because it could have totally fit on like radio in like 1990.
Oh yeah.
You know, it was just so good. Yeah. I definitely sensed the empowerment. Really good. Some of it also reminded me maybe a little bit of Conor Oberst, Bright Eyes type stuff, but not really. I mean, these are all just things, because a lot of the stuff you compared it to, I'm not really familiar with.
Gotcha.
So these are kind of the best examples I could think of.
Yeah, that's how it works, though.
But none of it is like, none of it sounds like any of those things. Like it sounds like Perfume genius.
Right.
It's really, it's just a really good. It's maybe not something I would listen to all the time, but
well, that's the thing too, is like some of the feedback that I've gotten about the show, besides me us never saying anything bad about anyone,
right?
Actually, this isn't feedback. This is a perceived feedback, which is something I invented in my mind, which is, if you listen to this podcast and you are sick of everything being vaporwave, glitch, power violence, doom, drone, noise, experimental, avant-garde, like all the stuff that this is really accessible. Like, I think you'll like
very much so.
And I'm talking to you, whoever you are. I think you'll find something on this that is really enjoyable. And
I think so.
I don't want to say it's straightforward at all. I think it's super interesting and super good, but there's nothing on this that, that should, I don't even know how to say it, should offend the ears. Like, I just think if you've been listening to our show and you're like, why the fuck don't they ever talk about music that sounds like music? Here you go. Listen to this record.
Yeah. I mean, if this doesn't work for you, then I would just recommend listen to Void Dweller then,
Yeah. I
mean, that's like, but yeah, no, this is like real gorgeous and real, like, I just really well put together songs.
Yeah.
The record, my last pick, is from a rapper named Sage Francis. And the name of this record is Personal Journals. Now, Sage Francis, just to give some history, he's somebody who I've been following for a long time. As I mentioned, he's a rapper from Providence, Rhode Island. He basically got his start as a freestyle battle rapper at this thing called Scribble Jam that used to take place. I don't know where it was. It might have been New York, but I could be completely off the mark there. It was a hip hop / poetry fest where they had, I think, from what I gather, you can actually find YouTube videos, but it's really cool because there's a lot of names that were just coming up, like in 1999, like Atmosphere, Slug was there, and they were all kind of battling, and then they ended up kind of becoming, not stars, but they ended up becoming career musicians, and started their own careers and everything. But Scribble Jam was kind of a pathway to that in the late 90s for underground indie rappers. Aesop Rock, I think, attended a few. But anyway, so it was like a hip hop poetry fest, and they would have battle raps, and they would have like these poetry sort of readings, freestyle readings, and then also DJs would battle too. And so it just seemed like it was a very interesting thing, that people were involved with at that time. I wish I would have been involved, or like old enough to have attended some of these, because they looked like they would have been a blast. But anyway, and then he went on tour with Atmosphere, because Atmosphere probably discovered him at like Scribble Jam, or caught a performance of him, because I mean, these underground rappers at that time were kind of, in cahoots with each other. And so I think he probably got his first taste of success of his underground career touring with Atmosphere. And then he also made a single called Makeshift Patriot, which was a response to the 9/11 tax way back in like 2001. And that was kind of the first time I think that you started hearing about Sage Francis. And then he put out his album Personal Journals. Now on Wikipedia, or not Wikipedia, Spotify, it says this record came out in 2006. It actually came out in 2002. So I'm assuming 2006 must have been like a remaster or reissue or something. But anyway, he also put out a bunch of mixtapes around this time as well. And basically the mixtapes, they were cool. And they were basically just sort of like, boom bap, kind of braggadocio raps, battle rap stuff. Because that's what he was kind of doing. This record took like a complete 180, and there's a huge difference in content and approach from that to this album, as this album is, lyrically, I feel like it explores a lot of vulnerabilities. And it's definitely a lot of reflection of like relationships. And in fact, this is the very first time, this album was the very first time that I heard the term emo rap being described as a rap record. There's a very raw element, like emotional element. I mean, it basically sounds like a punk record, like it sounds like almost like, this is kind of a ridiculous description, but like almost if like early Fugazi made like a rap record or something. It kind of has like that sort of aesthetic or sound to it, to me anyway. It's very jagged, but yet also very pretty sounding in a lot of parts. It's kind of inconsistent as far as the mixing goes, but I think that's part of its charm. I think that's exactly what this record sonically needed to be. Sometimes it's so close to lo-fi without being lo-fi that you actually hear like some tape hiss, and it, I don't know, there's multiple producers. So, and this was probably recorded, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of this was recorded in like the late 90s or early 2000s. So there might've been tape machines still kind of involved. And I think that's, again, that inconsistency is great, but it's mixed well. So, I mean, you don't really hear that, but I'm comparing it to his later records as well, sonically. So that's kind of why I say that. But yeah, it definitely is just a really interesting, great hip hop record. I guess the one thing that maybe hasn't necessarily aged well for me about it is the fact that I do think sometimes it tends to drag on a little bit. There are moments where I'm kind of like, okay, maybe this song doesn't necessarily need to be this long, but then you also realize that he's actually making points in his lyrics. Like, I think the opening of this album, the 1-2 of Crack Pipes and then going into Different, is just one of the most hilarious yet very sad and emotional yet very absurd moments that I've ever heard on a hip hop record. It literally goes from like, the first track is he's like basically rapping about, I don't know, like meeting grandma for Sunday dinner, and then something about an intensive care unit. So you're almost getting a picture painted of like, something's going wrong, like in his life. And then it goes into Different, where it's almost got this like absurdly off kilter beat that doesn't sound like it should be rapped over. It's almost not even a beat. Like it like there's this like weird sort of like part at the end of like each, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it's like each measure, I guess, where you hear this like drum like thing that's like, Like it sounds like it belongs on Looney Tunes or something. It's freaking crazy. And then he's like rapping about like how he doesn't have like any money and how he's like this poor rapper who records these awful sounding records. And you're just supposed to respect him for it, which is just hilarious.
Yeah.
It's great. And it works because, especially at that time, there was really nobody doing anything like this in hip hop. It was very unheard of. And I know I say that about almost every rap record I talk about, but with this one, it's true. I feel like this was a very just interesting, very skilled rap record that was not, it was very inclusive. I feel like in that regard, Sage Francis was ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Sure. He was talking about he was doing a lot of rapping about a lot of stuff that was almost as ridiculous as it sounds taboo in hip hop, especially around like 2002. You weren't supposed to be sensitive. You weren't supposed to be heartfelt. You were supposed to be this tough guy. I mean, even Sage himself kind of came from that with the battle rap stuff. And so I can only imagine what the underground hip hop movement thought of Personal Journals when it first came out.
Right.
I'm sure that they were probably like, what the hell? Now he also has, he got signed to Epitaph. So there's your punk comparison right there. Like, even if, I mean, and this record came out on his own label called Strange Famous. I'm assuming because 2005 is when his second record, A Healthy Distrust, came out. And I'm assuming that probably is what the 2006 on Spotify. I bet Personal Journals was reissued by Epitaph.
That makes sense.
That's probably what it was. A Healthy Distrust, as you can probably tell by the title, was a lot more political than this record. There was still elements of that sort of heartfelt, emotional stuff, but ultimately Personal Journals was almost that, just all the way through. And he was wearing his heart on his sleeve, like through this entire record. And that's why I love this record.
Yeah.
What did you think, Erik?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. The production is really cool. I liked the samples. They were weird and kind of stilted and off a little, but they were really atmospheric and jazzy and strange. I don't want to say it was experimental. I just think the sample choices were really interesting and cool. But I don't think it was like experimental or whatever. But really cool. Overall though, I feel like it had moments where it's funny,
right,
and tongue in cheek and things like that. But for the most part, overall, it had a pretty dark feeling about it, and really amazing wordplay. I think he's a really good rapper, and I think a really good writer.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, it had this kind of darkness to it all, and it had lots of references. And maybe this is just me inferring things, but it had a lot of references to like what sounds like a really hard time growing up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, as a child, as a young adult, as, you know, even the age that he's at making this record, but it just seemed really cathartic. Like this whole thing just seemed like he had a lot to work through, and he's doing it out loud and on the record. And I think it's really cool.
Yes.
You know, we talked about Ghostemane earlier. This is sort of the right way to work your way through some feelings and come out of it having grown as a person and learned and become better, not worse, you know?
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what I took from this record. As a side note though, I fucking hate Turn the Page. I hate it.
Oh yeah,
I absolutely hate it. And here's the thing, like the cover of it's called My Name is Strange. And
yeah.
I don't think they even give any writing credits to Bob Seger, which I could give.
No. Yeah.
There sort of is a Turn the Page cover. I hate the song Turn the Page. I hate the concept. I hate the song, the words, everything about it. And Metallica covering it was one thing.
Right.
They're so up their own asses at this point, whatever. But I was surprised by Sage Francis covering it. And anyone who knows me has already heard this rant, but I'll try to condense it. Turn the Page sucks. And here's the reason. If you don't like it, quit. I mean, Jesus Christ, you're out there on the road, on tour, playing every night in a band, and this is your life's dream. And then you're going to turn around and just write a song about how shitty it is the whole time. It's like, come on, dude. Who gives a shit? We don't care if Bob Seger or Metallica goes on the road.
Well, hold on.
This is your choice, dude. No one's forcing you to do this. Like, just bail if you hate being a rock star so much. Anyway.
Okay, but what about like, then what do you say to like, I don't know, Kurt Cobain or, you know, because I mean, that's basically like what a lot of songs by like Kurt Cobain was about, for example. The whole grunge era kind of seemed like it was like the anti-rock star by being rock stars.
I don't remember a Nirvana song where they actually,
the
whole song just talks about how crappy it is to be playing shows like specifically like.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't like he was talking about hating life a lot, but not hating. Yeah.
This is like literally like, I gotta plug in my guitar and play a fucking song and I hate my life. It's like, Jesus, dude, then just stop.
Okay.
Man.
What about like, dude, that is like the best voice I've ever heard you do. Even though that song, because I'm not a big fan of it either, but I just simply didn't like the song. I didn't actually give any thought as to why I didn't care for it. I think Metallica did make it better.
I think I don't know.
Yeah, like if I had the choice between having to listen to,
like, if I had to listen to one of them, I'd listen to Sage Francis.
Well, the Sage one, yeah, but let's just say the Sage one didn't exist.
Oh, okay.
Well, that all being said, what did you think of his take? My Name is Strange.
It didn't do anything any different, really.
Okay, so it just triggered memories of that song.
Yeah, I just hate the song.
I do have to make a correction.
Oh, okay.
I said that this album came out on his own label, Strange Famous, which I'm pretty sure that's what the reference to My Name is Strange is.
Yeah,
is about his label.
Right.
No, actually, this record came out on Anticon in 2002, which is home to Cloud Dead and who's that one guy that Dose One and a bunch of experimental rappers. This was the catchiest thing on Anticon in 2002.
Yeah.
Sage Francis is like the most commercial sounding or the most normal sounding thing. So that's the first thing. The second thing too is that he also appeared on a Bad Religion album.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah, The Empire Strikes First, I believe. So yeah, Sage Francis. My favorite line on the entire record was different like a platypus analytical analyst. By the end of this record, I'll make sure you all know who Sage Francis is.
Yeah, I loved that too.
That was great.
And your delivery was really good too.
Well, dude, I've listened to this fucking album so much. It's just like, this is like, seriously, like, this is like me when I was like 23, 24, like getting into like, underground hip hop and listening to like, Aesop Rock and LP and Sage and Atmosphere. Jurassic 5 was in there too. I love that group. You remember Jurassic 5?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Such a good hip hop group. The thing about them though is they're all dead rappers. I don't really like that. So, I mean, no, seriously, like there's a conspiracy, and I'm pretty sure it's a joke that like Akil, the MC, who is one of the members, is Tupac reincarnated, or not even reincarnated. Tupac faked his death.
Wow.
Biggie faked his death. Big L faked his death. And they all formed this group called Jurassic 5.
Wow.
And there's a movie on Netflix that is about this place that was on the West Coast where all these rappers kind of came up, like Freestyle Fellowship Jurassic 5 and a bunch of these like rappers on the web, hieroglyphics, all those guys. I can't even remember the name of it. Man, that sucks because it's a really good documentary. And there's footage of the Jurassic 5 long before Tupac died. So that's why I think it's got to be a joke. And then the other thing that really put the nail in the coffin for me is that their DJ, who's Cut Chemist, he's a white guy, the only white guy in Jurassic 5. And they say that Cut Chemist is now MCA from the Beastie Boys. And I'm like, it's like, now he's MCA. They killed him, and MCA freaking walked into his body.
Who says this? Just the internet?
There's a website, there's a YouTube channel, and I think it's called Akil the MC is Tupac.
Wow. Okay.
And it's something like that. All you have to do is just look up Jurassic 5. There's this great video that I think is just fantastic. Whether this guy's being serious or not, where he actually he does face comparisons. Every person, he like shows Akil right next to Tupac. And he's like, see, you can tell they have the same nose. They have the same, but they don't look alike at all. I'm like, what are you talking about?
That sounds awesome. I'm going to check that out.
Fantastic. It's
nice.
That leads us to the local release, doesn't it? So the local release this week hails from Des Moines, Iowa. I have a little bit of a story here. So they're called the Blendours. And it's fronted by a guy who I think just goes by the name Trevor Blender. And it's actually, normally, it's just him playing acoustic guitars and singing these incredibly amazing, catchy songs that he writes. But in the early 2010s, my band at the time, Disgruntled Noisebox, played a little fest that was put on by this band called Techno Lincoln called Foon Fest in Iowa City at the old Public Space 1. And the band that played right after us, I believe, was the Blenders. And I'm sure he probably doesn't have any memory of this. Maybe he does. I don't know. All I know is that I was blown away at this band when I saw them. They were so fun and just so like non-fucking around in like a really like Ramones type way, where I mean they did their set Ramones style for the most part, where it's just after a song 1 2 3 4, or they would just yell out the next song. And it was just so fun and so like the song stuck with me forever. I was actually singing one of the songs on the way home, like, and I gotta get a CD from these guys, And I thought they were just always a band, but apparently this was just sort of like I don't know if it was just, I don't know if he just wanted to put together a band for a few shows, like a full band, and then just play acoustic, but he's got tons of records on his Bandcamp under the name The Blenders. This is a record that was just released a couple weeks ago called Washington Called, also known as the Long Lost Full Band record. And so this was apparently recorded in 2013. So it's actually an old record that just was never released. And I'm not sure what the whole decision was about that or why, but I love this project from beginning to end. It's just unashamedly, is that even a word? There's no shame about them just being Ramones doo-wop inspired pop punk with fun, juvenile, but also dumb and smart lyrics at the same time. Like the song about how they want to be unemployed. He wants to be unemployed and not contribute anything to society. And it's so relatable. It's like, it's dumb, but it's fun and it's relatable. Like, who really does want to work? Like, when you think about it,
right.
Like, who really wants to do that? And it's perfect for like a band that sounds like a combination of the Ramones, the Descendants, Green Day, Screeching Weasel, but also Buddy Holly, you know? I mean, parts of it also even remind me a little bit of They Might Be Giants. Like if they were just more of a straight up, you know, punk act. My favorite songs on here, I mean, there's not a bad song on the entire thing. This is another one where I have nothing bad to say. I love this album. Yeah. It came from the radio. My favorite song is Never Loved You. My gosh, that I can't even do it right, but, you know, because I sound stupid when I do it. But you know what I mean? Like that, I guess, what do they call it? Like a O part?
Like a doo-wop?
Doo-wop, yeah, like a doo-wop. I mean, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And then the song Hypochondriac, which I think is hilarious, but also scary and relatable too. Because I've had that happen to me, like for real. It's like, I don't know. It's like Trevor, he kind of just like digs into this. I don't know. I mean, this probably sounds too deep. This maybe is just an insane, but for me, like, I think that, you know, he digs into like this part of everybody's like being where they just, they want to be like free. They want to be like, you know, a child, you know, because there's a childlike quality to this music too. And it's like, but then like, you know, there's also like, you know, like a song like Hypochondriac, it can be taken both ways. It's like, yeah, it's fun and it's funny, but then that's also like a thing that actually exists that is really dark and scary at the same time. You know, you can even say the same thing about the song about being unemployed, because there's people that are actually unemployed and they're not choosing to be, or, you know, like right now with the economy and everything, there's like this really like sort of like desperation sort of like in the music that I also really appreciate. It's just very punk and catchy as hell and just a lot of fun. And Trevor, if you happen to listen to this, thank you for making it. What did you think, Erik?
Oh yeah, I loved it. It's super fun, like you said. I think it does. I think that you're right in that it's not all just saccharine. You know, it's not. I think all this is very tongue in cheek. Like even songs like Back Home with Mommy, which talks about how great it is to be back home living with your mom and how they, you know, pay for everything and clean up your room and buy the snacks you like and stuff. Like there's still a little tag at the end of the chorus, like, you know, that's basically like, even if I'm 23 or whatever. And so like, I think that even though this is super fun, obviously there is this element of self-awareness to it, and kind of just like a tongue-in-cheek kind of satirical element to it all. And I think that's phenomenal, because if it were just actually sweet, like it wouldn't have the kind of teeth that it needs to kind of hold you there and let you enjoy it without being self-conscious about it, if that makes any sense. Sometimes if things are too sweet, I just can't get into them. So I like there to be a little bit of an edge to it all. But yeah, I think it's great. I think that like technically the playing on it is like amazing. It's so tight and so well played and so well recorded. Like this is what the drums should sound like. This is what the guitar, the bass, the vocals are amazing. I love the way they sound, especially the backup vocals or background vocals. And I don't know if Trevor recorded this all or if there were other people involved. I feel like I've seen Trevor and one other person play together, just a duo. And this was a long time ago, but it was at this place called Pizza on Dubuque. And Lipstick Homicide also played. And so it was awesome. And I loved it even then, but for some reason didn't really follow up on it. So I'm glad it came out, and I'm glad you picked it, and I'm glad I got to hear it. And I'm going to make my way through the rest of these releases and have a lot of fun doing it.
The name of this record is Washington Called. I also I've heard quite a bit of the other stuff. I think most of it is just Trevor and an acoustic guitar, and it's just as infectious as this record.
Nice.
But I don't know. Maybe he's had different lineups. I'm not really sure. What I do know, I'm glad you mentioned the tightness as well, because that was another element when I saw them live, was just how tight they were as a band. It was like I was glad that I played before them. I can tell you that, because it was so good. It blew me away.
Well,
so thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Catch us on Facebook. Catch us on what's the other one? Instagram.
Yeah, that's the other one.
That's the other one.
Yeah.
You guys are all looking.
Let us know what you think. Interact with us, because here's the thing. I was thinking about this earlier today, is if you listen to this show, right, you probably feel like you get to hang out with Dan and me for like an hour every week, you know, and I guess that's fun because you keep listening. But we don't feel that way unless you talk to us. I want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. Like the Iron Maiden episode. Did you enjoy that? Did you like one-off episode?
Yeah. What'd you guys think of the Iron Maiden episode? Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. So yeah, talk to us. Instagram, Facebook. I don't know. Whatever. You know.
Yeah.
Send us a message.
Come to our houses.
Yeah, come on over. We'll jam or watch a shitty horror movie. Whatever you want to do.
You know, that's a hard decision to make too.
Yeah. We could do both.
Are you aware of the streaming service Tubi?
Yeah, Tubi TV.
Tubi TV, yeah. That's just a gold mine of like really bad horror movies. And just really bad movies in general.
Mm-hmm. Lots of them. And
they're usually so bad that they're good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've only seen a few movies that are so bad they're bad. Like,
yeah, me too.
I have seen them though. God damn, I've seen them. Nightmare Weekend.
Yeah.
Don't watch it. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. Probably. Well, I don't know. Everything's garbage unless it's great.
Yeah, pretty much.
I live in a world of hyperbole. There is no, it was all right. No, it was either dog shit or amazing. That's
you live in that world where it's like good or bad. No maybes here.
I don't watch maybes. I don't listen to middle ground records. Like if I start it and it's like, yeah, this is good, like then I turn it off.
You're either giving me gold or you're giving me shit.
Yep.
One of the two.
Yeah. That's all I want.
Doesn't really matter. Yeah. No, I feel you. I feel you. Yep. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Woo.
Bye. All right.
I gotta plug in my guitar and play a fucking song, and I hate my life.